Let's talk more about those demographics. Can you break it down by gender for us? And are you seeing a big shift when it comes to male versus female voters in this state? And especially because now with the switch of the Democratic ticket, Kamala Harris, it obviously went from an 80-something-year-old man to a woman.
Great question. And I think that we saw a little bit of unexpected results here. So we do find that Vice President Harris is winning female voters overall in all of these states, apart from Arizona, where it is very close, but President Trump does edge out Vice President Harris among female voters. Again, that is certainly within the margin of error for that demographic. So, it could be that, women voters are going to break for Harris on election day. We just aren't sure. But the fact that it's so competitive there, I think that's really interesting. We didn't necessarily expect to see that. We do typically expect to see in these swing states that female voters are going to back the Democratic candidate. That's typically how these results shake out. So, certainly interesting results. It varies by state. It's more competitive in, say, some of these southern states like Georgia and North Carolina than it is in, say, Michigan. Again, these aren't overwhelming numbers either. We're really looking at, plus or minus 10 to 15 points in margin between Vice President Harris and President Trump among women. The very interesting dynamics there. I think we're definitely going to be keeping an eye on that vote in Arizona. That's not, again, necessarily what we expected to see, but hey, that's the numbers don't lie.
The numbers don't lie, certainly, but what about younger voters? Where are you seeing them? Because ever since we saw Vice President Kamala Harris step into the race, her campaign has really embraced Gen Z. Is that paying off?
I think so. We're seeing throughout these states that somewhere between 60 and 65% of these voters who are under the age of 30 are breaking for Vice President Harris. It's when you get into the sort of, let's call them elder millennials, those who are in their 30s, that's where we see a more deviation. In some states, most states, it's very close. We see, roughly 48 to 49%, somewhere in that range for either Vice President Harris or President Trump. Again, that does vary by state. In places like Arizona, again, it was a little bit different. We saw that 30 to 39 demographic is actually breaking for President Trump, and it's by a more significant margin than we anticipated. So, yeah, still some real interesting results there that we weren't necessarily expecting. But I think overall that sort of quote unquote Gen Z vote, that is certainly going towards Vice President Harris now, in not in the same way that it was going towards President Biden. He was doing worse among these voters. Harris has certainly improved on those numbers, and I think that's really helping her in some of these states, especially places like Michigan, Georgia, Nevada.